afternoon, and welcome to Transformation Thursday, where we bring conversations that elevate awareness and strengthen our communities. Today's conversation centers on an issue that is both urgent and deeply connected to the work we do every day: human trafficking. This is often thought of as a distant problem, but the reality is it exists in our communities every day. And we want to talk about how it impacts individuals and families in ways that are closely tied to behavioral health, trauma, and substance abuse. At Northeast Delta Human Services Authority, our mission is rooted in integrated care, prevention, wellness, and expanding access to care across our communities. We work daily to address the underlying factors that increase risk, whether that's untreated mental health challenges, substance abuse disorder, or lack of supportive resources. Conversations like these are a critical part of our work because awareness is the first step to prevention and healing. As we prepare for two impactful upcoming events, the Community Awareness Event on Sex Trafficking May 1st and the fourth annual Stand Up NELA Gala on May 2nd, we are honored to be joined by two dynamic voices who are leading this work from both a community and national perspective. Dr. Marlene Carson, a nationally recognized strategist and former chair of the United States Advisory Council on Human Trafficking, brings a system-level perspective grounded in both expertise and lived experience. And Sharon Pleasant, founder of Louisiana Love Hope for Children, licensed professional counselor, and dedicated advocate working on the front lines to support vulnerable youth and families here in Louisiana. Together, they bring insight, expertise, and a shared commitment to transformation. In today's discussion, we'll explore what human trafficking truly looks like in our communities, how it intersects with behavioral health, and most importantly, how each of us collectively and individually can be part of the solution. This is more than a conversation, it's an opportunity to learn, engage, and take action. So let's get started. Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, I'm so excited to start talking to you guys about human trafficking. But before we get started, I want to ask a very important question. What inspired your work in the human trafficking field?
Sharon, you want to take that first?
Oh, yeah. So I lived in Columbus, Ohio for over 18 years. And there I was in school at a Bible college there. And Dr. Marlene came and did, she taught there and did had an event there. And I had never heard of sex trafficking. Being from Louisiana, never heard of it. And that night changed my life. She had a transitional living or a safe house. I'm sorry, a safe house. And I ended up going to volunteer, and that changed my life and planted the seed and later on becoming Louisiana Love Home for Children.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
I absolutely love when she tells that story. But for me, I am a survivor of domestic minor sex trafficking. I don't call myself a survivor, but I'm a survivor. And so for me, it became so personal. And really, I tell people, I just don't say this just because it sounds good, but I really didn't know how to live till I found my reason to die. And I promise you, this is something I take very seriously. And this is something I will die for this cause.
I love the thriving part. That really is a beautiful part of that, thriving after something traumatic. Absolutely. And so let's get into the events that you have planned, Ms. Sharon. What's the vision behind hosting both the awareness event and the NELA Stand-Up Gala back to back?
So let me start from the beginning. When I moved back home, it was during COVID, and of course everything was closed down. But once everything was able to open back up, I started looking for volunteer. Where could I volunteer at? And there were no places that had safe houses or therapeutic group homes that specifically took care of those survivors, the minor survivors. And there were some for adults, but not for the minors. So then God placed it on my husband and on our hearts, and we ended up, start looking for a place to house these survivors and to help move them and navigate through, hopefully that they'll see that there is love and there's love for free. And that started, and it just grew from there. And from there on,
amazing.
yeah.
So as you continue to grow this, your home and your love and your heart and capacity for survivors or survivors of human trafficking, talk a little bit more how this event and the gala helps continue that work.
It continues the work because here in Northeast Louisiana, everybody think about Louisiana, New Orleans, Lafayette, Baton Rouge, but as it relates to Northeast Louisiana, we're still learning here. We're still learning what sex trafficking is. We're still learning what it looks like. So for me to educate, and not only that, I thank God for Dr. Carson to give a face. And then we also have another person that's from Bockenville, Louisiana, which we know it gives it more, brings it more home. So not only do we want survivors coming in, speaking and educating outside of Louisiana, but we want those in Louisiana to stand up and know that we have them and we're standing with them. So for me to educate Northeast Louisiana, to come back to my home state is an honor to what I learned in Ohio to bring it back. So this is our fourth one. We did in 2022, we did the first proclamation for sex trafficking here in Northeast Louisiana. And it's been growing. And, you know, eyes are open, seeing what's been hidden, and having the words to put to what's going on has been very, very important and vital. And that's the reason behind these two. And that we're having people fly in. I feel like let's just hit them all 3 times. And that was another thing. So I feel like, okay, it's going to be a tight weekend, but it's going to be a great weekend. And to get everybody, as many people as possible to hear what we have to bring. And, you know, Dr. Carson and even Sula, who's coming also from Florida, is going to be vital as well.
And can I say something on that note?
Absolutely.
So what Sharon is creating here, I think is so powerful because awareness creates emotion. It doesn't create change. But to have these 2 events back to back, it will create networking. It will create information. It will create where we can come together and people will not only become educated, they can get implemented into a system. If they have a heart, they really want to help victims of trafficking in any kind of capacity, this is the place to start.
I love that. I like the implement it into the system because with Northeast Delta HSA, one of the reasons why we wanted to sponsor some of the gala is because we want to be a part of that system because we provide behavioral health resources, prevention and wellness resources. And we know that the survivors of human trafficking oftentimes suffer from behavioral health, mental health, addiction, things of that nature. And so bringing that component on board, being visible, sharing those resources, and then talking later, as we discussed, about how we can build a further partnership is part of that being implemented in the system. And other individuals and community organizations can find their path in this as well and say, this is how I can also help with a very large and national problem.
You know, I checked out your guys' website because I'm not familiar with you. I'm not from here. But when I checked out your website, I really did realize, I think, first of all, people need to understand that the trauma is like a side effect of trafficking. It starts with vulnerability. But when that trauma when a life has been impacted by trauma, you have to have those systems in place. You have to have, to me, a holistic system because you're going to have substance abuse. You could have, all the stuff that affects a kid's life before they can even make a decision, that are affecting their lives. And so I think what you all do is very, very powerful. And I'm excited to talk to you all about the intersections and see how we can all grow together.
Thank you. So, Ms. Sharon, who should attend these events and what do you hope they walk away understanding or feeling empowered to do?
Man, that's a good question. I think everybody should come to this event because, first of all, the first event is for the CEU event, which is at the Cotton Street. So we have social workers and LPCs, and we invited the government, the police force, and all these people and church people. That's a huge thing, because
Yes.
that it happens in churches, and people think churches are safe. And now we know with gun violence and all of that, that they're not safe. So not only that, after that night, we have the talk, which that talk not only goes goes along with sex trafficking, but it goes along with people who are depressed, people who have relationship problems, people who are struggling in different areas, grief. So you have that, but then a lot of times, you know, it triggers something else. So it could have been from sexual abuse, why you having these issues, mental health issues, or even somatic issues. So we're going to deal with that. So it's going to be a whole lot of different things. I feel like people are going to be feeling, because the conversation is so new, or I shouldn't say, or not, I hadn't been on a stage where 15 people going to be given a different perspective. We have 2 people who were on drugs and now sober, have a lot of sober years. So it's going to hit that person, and you know, trafficking, or it could have been sex abuse. So it's going to tie into a lot of people. And then the gala, the final, which is going to be huge, because I feel like then Sula is going to give that more and educate and tell, you know, all of that. So I feel like I know it's going to be a lot. I know there's a lot going on in NELA that weekend, this weekend, but I feel like it's important. I just feel like the people who attend, their life is going to be changed.
Absolutely.
I also think that parents should really take a look at, they should come. And I say that because, you know, parents sometimes, as a traffic survivor, my parents didn't know what to do. They didn't know who to call, and they just had no resources. And so prayerfully, it doesn't happen to your child or a child that you know. But if it does, you need to know what to do. Who do I call? Who's going to help me? Who's going to help me, my child, through this process? And so come and get the resources and information that you could potentially need.
Right. Yeah. And both of you touched on a very important topic. You said vulnerable. Yeah. And so I think even for me, as listening to this, when we think about human trafficking, we don't think about just where a person is in life before this even happens, and how that vulnerability yields to being preyed on. And then there are other, you know, things that happen subsequently to that. And so I think that's an important topic. And I can't wait. I'll be there. So I can't wait to hear more about this. Of course, at the awareness event, I think that's amazing, because we often overlook those simple terms. And, you know, generally we all vulnerable in some way at some, you know, point in life. Right. And so making sure that we protect those things, know how to protect ourselves, is important. Which dovetails into my next question. When people hear human trafficking, they often think it's something that happens elsewhere. What does trafficking actually look like in communities like ours?
Wow. Dr. Marlene, I'm going to let you take that question.
Sure. It starts with vulnerability. It starts with grooming. And so grooming is where someone may identify a potential victim and they begin to befriend them. It can happen on social media. It can happen on these roadblocks games. I'm so sick and tired of hearing about these roadblocks games. And parents are not understanding what's really happening. But it can happen so subtly that you don't even realize what's happening at all. And so I think it's really, really crucial that when your kids start showing a different type of behavior, that, you know, teenagers are going to be teenagers. You know what I'm saying? But you still need to ask the questions. You still need to know who they're talking to. You still need to see who's on their phone. And we're going to give some tools and resources this weekend on how you can find out and your kid don't know. So we're going to give you those tools and resources this week.
And I also want to piggyback on what Dr. Carson said about parents. You know, my heart goes out to the single parents that's working 2-3 jobs, and the kid is left at home and a stranger is grooming them. You know, so think about the feeling they had when they was trying to survive, and then somebody was a predator was waiting on them to go to work so they can talk to their child and start the grooming process. So all of it, because it didn't start with a parent on drugs or a parent just out in the streets, you know. It started from some people. Their testimony is that my mom, my dad wasn't around, or mom and dad were at work. And I was left alone by myself, and I just got on roadblocks, and somebody opened a car and asked me to get in, or you know, whatever conversation, a message. So we want to bring this conversation, Dr. Carol, to where it's like never thought about that. It's so accessible, easy from my own home. Somebody could traffic me out of my home, and the level of trust. That, and sometimes it's not even a lot of trust. It's just somebody is here to talk to me, but it's the wrong somebody. So we want to bring this conversation and have it open, and to the point to where, you know, people start to look at things different. We don't want you so fearful, but we want you able to see, let me think about that a little more. Or before I give my child a quick answer, can they go to the mall? Let me kind of like do a little what's been going on. You know what I'm saying? Because you can't get overly critical, but you definitely got to be on and being watchful and being protective of what's going on. Not always yes to anything, you know. So I think that's
so you're equipping parents with the right tools to understand and identify when something is different, when their children are acting differently. And I oversee our prevention and wellness department for Northeast Delta. And so we work with children from the age of 5 all the way to 18. And so we do a lot of social emotional teaching as well. So that's something we can talk to the parents about, something we can talk to the teachers about, because I'm learning more just by sitting here talking with you guys. I'm going to try to get all my staff to come to the awareness event, because it's so important to integrate this into the work that we do, because it's right there, and we work on building resiliency. And so just having another notch of education to understand some of the things we're building it against is very helpful. All right. So the next question is, how does human trafficking intersect with behavioral health, particularly trauma, substance use, and mental health challenges?
Oh, wow. So I can speak on just here with Louisiana Love, our girls. It intersects with girls coming in with their mental health. And a lot of them don't know how to separate. And you have adults that don't know how to separate the pain and the trauma from acting out. You can bring them to a safe place, but the safe place right now does not take care of the past. And a lot of times, like, so when they come and you know, they come here, and my staff I had to talk to, but they're good now. It's like, but they had to overcome. You know, look what they had to overcome. And when the thing is, even with the vapes, that's an epidemic within itself. Is that
absolutely.
Absolutely. So then now they lacing those with whatever, you know. And I always tell my kids, there's no recipe for vape, for drugs. It's whatever they put in it. That's what, you know what I'm saying? And so when I think about the vapes, I think about kids that were living as grown women or men, doing whatever, no boundaries. So you have to teach them boundaries. You know, learning to more trust the wrong person easier than to trust the right person. Because I find it's harder for them to trust us that's safe than to trust their school. Like, oh, okay. Then you still have the peer pressure, and like Dr. Carson said, the teenage, you know. So battling with, okay, do we have this teenage issue, or is this a trauma or substance abuse? So learning how to target and deal with those specific is very important. And that's why I feel like survivors shouldn't just be thrown with everybody, because they're just different.
That's true.
Totally different. So.
And it's like I was saying, trauma is not just a side effect, but it's both a precursor and a result. It definitely is. So individuals who have experienced like instability, neglect, prior trauma, sexual abuse, or whatever the case may be, when exploitation happens, it only deepens that trauma. It only makes it worse. You know what I'm saying? And then when you include the substance abuse, you know, I remember I used to hear and I didn't know this initially, but when I would hear some of the victims, they would say, I got to go take my medicine. Well, they was really not taking their meds. They were smoking weed or taking a pill that was not prescribed. And so
Gotcha.
we have to even hear the language that they are using, because so they felt like the weed and all the other drugs that they were taking was easing their pain, when really it was only deepening their trauma.
Right. Oh, yeah. And I think, and that's important to hear. And it's also important for me to hear as a representative of a behavioral health organization, because one of the things we want to know is, how do we help? Yeah. Which is why we're having this Transformation Thursday. How do we help? And so understanding the trauma, and we are a trauma-informed agency. And so making sure that we apply those practices to care is very important. Also understanding, which was very important, what you said, Ms. Sharon, the life that they lived as adults with no boundaries, but also still being teenagers, still having to go through that brain development, which doesn't fully happen until you're 24. And so intersecting all these different lifestyles together, how do we come together holistically and address the issues that are associated with human trafficking?
Can I tell you a really short story?
Yes, absolutely.
So one of our clients years ago, she came, she had 8 diagnoses. And she was really like a walking zombie. I'm talking about Rosita, Sharon. She was like a walking zombie. And so really what we did was we partnered with the behavioral health agency, but we created an atmosphere, a safe atmosphere, what Sharon is doing now for these girls, and with just love and no judgment. Not that it doesn't have correction and structure, but it was love and no judgment. And so I remember one day she called me, Dr. Carol, and she's like, Miss Marlene, I'm so sorry. I said, well, what's wrong? She said, I'm valedictorian and I'm so sorry. She didn't even know what valedictorian meant. Right. But I'm telling you. And so when we were interviewed, you look up this story online. When we were interviewed, literally, there was no secret sauce. There was just love. There was, you know what I'm saying? And what Sharon is doing in this community, I'm telling you, she's changing the lives of these kids. And everybody should come, see, partner, and do what you can do to keep this mission going further.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. All right. Dr. Carson, your work at the national level brings a system perspective. What changes need to happen at both the community and policy level to truly combat trafficking?
Well, there's a whole lot of changes that need to happen, but more than we can talk right now. But I think some of the changes that need to happen are systemically. First of all, there's no structured housing protocols when it comes to safe houses for traffic victims. So, everybody can open up a house for traffic victims, but does that mean everybody should open up a house for traffic victims? Probably not. So one of the things that we are pushing for right now is some federal legislation on protocols and policies across the country, that these are what you should do. And if you're applying for federal funding, you have to meet these criteria. That's one of the biggest ones to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. That keeps them safe and keeps some structure, some protocols, like you said, something to abide by, because we want to protect our children. Absolutely. Sharon, your work through Louisiana Love Home for Children reflects deep commitment to vulnerable youth. What gaps did you see that led you to create this organization?
So the gap, when I moved back from Ohio, moved back home, and seeing that it wasn't anything here. And I heard that there were people who tried in West Monroe and they couldn't get the support or the help at all. So we ended up having to do what we had to do. So my husband and I, we was like, God put it on our hearts to do it. We got to use our resources. And we used our own resources to purchase the home. And the gap is still people don't believe it's here, even though you see it on TV more in the last couple of years. It's still don't believe it's here, or still just I don't even have any words when I hear different things about sex trafficking, or it's not North Louisiana, maybe it's in New Orleans. No, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere, right?
And it's more places where people don't believe is there because it's easy to access the kid, you know. And then you think about, and I think about culture. When I lived in Ohio, though it was there as well, but think about our culture, Southern hospitality.
Yeah.
And people play on that. So you play on the Southern hospitality. If I know you somebody else's cousin, well, you my cousin.
Right.
We bring people in. We get so, and for me, I didn't recognize and understand that until I moved to the Midwest.
Wow.
I'm like, oh yeah, we are nice. Nicer.
Extremely, yes.
Yes. And I was like, so sometimes without knowing, we just hand our kids over. You know, and not even know that a predator is like, yes, you know, somebody come from somewhere else. So the gaps are, you know, how do we not be taken advantage of? Or, you know what I'm saying? And I know Dr. Carson talked about how somebody moved in her neighborhood and they courted the neighborhood.
The whole neighborhood.
What they did, the whole neighborhood, so they figure out what was the deficit and they played on it. And then they trafficked those kids, and Dr. Carson was one. So when I look at that and I look at how we do, even in New Orleans, the panhandling, the children beating no drums and out, that's so hard, you know what I'm saying, for trafficking or somebody to do something. So we have so many loopholes, we have so many things that are culture for us, but it doesn't set our kids up for success.
Yeah. So let me ask you this as a final question, because we're running out of time. This is such a great conversation. I wish we had an hour. How can attendees continue engagement after these events? So what's next beyond May 1st and May 2nd?
So what's next? So first, we're going to be asking for volunteers, not just in the home, but helping us with events, to educate Northeast Louisiana and whoever that comes. And then we will not only educate and have more events, partnering, and like we're doing with you all. Now I'm so appreciative with you all helping us, HSA helping us. And hopefully have more people, and we just keep spreading until Northeast Louisiana is known that, hey, we're standing for ours.
We're standing, absolutely. And Carson, any final words?
Yeah, I also say there'll be a program that they'll be able to sign up for, and they can get a certification if they choose to in anti-trafficking initiatives on what to do. Just get educated.
Absolutely. So at this point, I want to thank you both for coming on to Transformation Thursday. And I want to let our guests know, if you want more information about our events, sponsorships, or any of our services at Northeast Delta, please visit our website at NEDHSA.org or give us a call at 1-800-256-2522. Thank you so much for tuning in today. And thank you again to our wonderful guests, Ms. Sharon Pleasant and Dr. Carson. If you want to stay up to date on all of our programs and events, the best way to do that is to follow the Phoenix on social media through Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, or X. And we will see you next time. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.